fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
What's up, Salt Strong Unchurched? It's Joe Simons. A little bit quiet here this morning. It's super early. My kids are asleep right across the hall. And I've been up here in my office writing down really just kind of a look back at things that I screwed up last year or even just lessons learned, mistakes made. I'm spending some time here this morning looking at where I spent a lot of my time. And some of it was great in terms of being useful. And some of my time where I spent it on social media and, you know, getting caught up in reading some political posts and stuff was a complete waste of time. And so every year, and I would highly encourage you to do this, you can't change the past, but you can certainly learn from it. And that's, I would be willing to wager you can learn a lot from it yourself if you just look back and fix just one thing that, hey, here's one, maybe it's a bad habit. Maybe it's looking at your phone and saying, hey, I spent 4 hours of a day on Facebook. Maybe I should cut that in half or eliminate it altogether. There's so much you can learn from the past, even if you just take an hour out of your year, 1 hour to look at what you did in the past and try to apply it to the future. So this is just as much for me as it for you, and I hope you'll do this as well. I did make a lot of mistakes last year. 2020 was just a crazy year in general, right? But then again, was it really, right? I mean, I know I did a podcast just a few weeks ago saying it was, one of our best years for our family, and I think so much of it is about attitude and perspective, right? I've shared about my brother Daniel, who wakes up every morning. He can't walk, he can't talk. He is 100% reliant on someone just even have to get him out of bed to just take that first step, if you will. He obviously can't take steps, but even just that first step of facing the day requires really multiple people now just to be able to lift him out of bed and to get him into a wheelchair. Yet he wakes up with a massive smile on his face. Like it's almost unreal. I'm talking about this dude is waking up just flat out happy, glad to be alive, no reason to be mad at God or the world or anything that, that we want to blame our bad day on. It's amazing. It's just, he's such a great reminder to me that I don't have bad days. I don't have bad years. There's nothing that could happen in my day that's going to even compare with what someone like my brother or the millions of others who are disabled and live in breath to breath in some cases, and just lucky to be alive. There's just nothing you can compare it to. So super, super grateful. All that being said, looking back, I wish I would have spent more time in prayer. I'm looking at just my time and where it was spent and the kind of this prayer and just silence. There is just something special about it. Even just the last couple weeks with some road trips over the New Year's. And just that silence at one point, we're driving at night and whole family's asleep. And, I don't know, there's something magic about maybe being on the road and just letting your mind wander. And same with being out on the water, right? If you're in a kayak or a boat or even just hiking around, which we did quite a bit of hiking, out in the woods, there's just something magical that happens there. So for me, it would be spending more time in prayer, more time in silence, spending a little bit less time drinking, a little less time on Facebook, a whole lot less time even though I didn't get political last year in terms of I did that one post and that was it. I didn't comment on any political stuff, but I still spent some time reading it and getting caught up and just, looking at comment strings and finding myself getting mad about them. And just, wow, what a waste of time. What a waste of energy. That's something that I couldn't do anything about, nor who really cares, right? So going forward, that's just always a reminder of looking back at how much time I probably did waste. And even with this whole COVID thing, here's the bad news, guys. It ain't going away. I mean, it will at some point, but it's not going to be this year. I think even by December, we'll still be talking about this. Even with the vaccines, you got a majority, if not 50%, the majority of people don't even want anything to do with them, and they still can't even get them out the way they want to. I feel like this is going to be something that's going to drain us, and there's going to be different strains over strands of it. I just feel like this is going to be ongoing. But then again, it doesn't even matter that we talk about it, right? Or get upset about it. I mean, there's things that obviously we can do to protect ourselves and our families, but to get so emotionally involved on comments or disagreements about mask or no mask or, vaccines, no vaccines. I mean, it is just an absolute waste of time. You're not going to change anyone's opinion. And quite honestly, it's just a waste of your energy. It's draining. So a lot of that ties in with, even just the anger and the forgiveness. I feel like that's one of the biggest issues facing our society. And even me, I felt myself, even all this political stuff and even, some things around the COVID that I completely disagreed with as kind of principle. And I would find myself sometimes still thinking about it a couple hours later. And I know for a lot of people, I'm pretty lucky that I can kind of, slowly get things off of my chest and kind of move on. But I know there's so many people that can't. They hold a grudge against some person online that said something or, slandered them or whatever. And they don't get over it sometimes for weeks, and they're just holding on to all this anger and animosity. And I think with social media, it's taking that to a whole new extreme of people just kind of holding on to all these small little things. And so that's a big thing that I want to focus on this year is just not letting anything bother me. Don't, grandfather said, don't sweat the small stuff. And by the way, it's all small stuff. That's probably one of the biggest lessons learned is just don't sweat the small stuff. I mentioned the alcohol thing too. So, gosh, when was it? It was April of 2019 is when I decided to do the 3-drink challenge in terms of capping myself at 3 drinks. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made. And what that means is basically no more binge drinking, which I was prone to do, where I wouldn't, drink for the week, and then, Friday or Saturday would come along and there'd be some party or something, and I would have quite a few drinks. Just something I've done since college. It was kind of just one of those bad habits, like a lot of us might get when we're younger, and you kind of stick with it, and you have friends that stick with it, and it just seems normal. But it really can do a ton of damage to your body and even relationships. And obviously, alcohol can make you do some pretty dumb stuff that you regret. Has for me. And so I did this 3-drink challenge. And really for about the first year, I was really, really good. I've still stuck with it. But what I've done, I'm just going to be candid with you because this is going to help hold myself more accountable, is there was a handful of times where I kind of slipped up, where I still only had 3 drinks technically, but I would pour really big drinks in a couple instances, and kind of lying to myself, because this is still a bet between me and myself, right, and God. But I was disappointed in myself the next morning. I wasn't waking up hungover, but I still knew I had too much based on the promise I'd made to myself. So I asked God for forgiveness. I asked my wife for forgiveness, and really just myself. So that was a tough one. And so it's something I want to work on. Like I said, it was a slippery slope, and I think that happens all the time. I saw a sermon recently. I can't remember the guy's name, but he talked about how he had left his car. It's a second car, one he's had for many, many years. I believe an old Jeep, and he had left the window cracked. I'm not even talking a quarter of an inch, just barely. And it was outside, in the driveway, and he didn't drive it for 4 or 5 months. And all of a sudden, he opens the door, and he had no idea he left the window cracked. I'm talking about like something you could barely even see, but it was just enough, just that small crack to let a little water in and a little mildew every day. And, a couple storms go by, and a little bit more water just kind of drips in slowly. And now, 4 or 5 months later, he opens this thing up, and there is mildew everywhere. It literally is just green and nasty and gnarly. I mean, it looks like it had just been sitting underneath a lake. And yet all it took was that small, super small, less than a fraction of an inch of a window crack. And that's so similar to what we do in our lives. It's where I found myself all of a sudden, all right, I've done this a handful of times now, and it's usually for a reason, right? It was over Christmas or New Year's, and hey, this is a time I could pour, instead of pouring a normal drink to stick with my 3, I'd pour a pretty big drink. And my excuse was, it's still only one drink, and, no one's ever going to really know or care. No one did, except for me. And my promise to myself and to God. But it's a slippery slope, right? Because all of a sudden now you could be pouring 42-ounce drinks and calling it one, and you're drinking a whole thing of vodka. Then that's not what it's all about. And so for me, that was a big one. And if you're having similar issues, I get it, because I know how my mind gets when I've had those 2 or 3, and you can kind of start making excuses that, oh man, maybe I might just need one more. So that's something I'm going to be working on really hard this year to kind of get back to where I was that first year. Everything just felt better and was working better. Just more energy, more life. I love that. So that was a big one for me. Looking back over the year, advice to myself is stay true to the alcohol. And if I can't do it, I'm just going to have to go cold turkey and stop altogether. I've done that a couple times in the past, and I liked it, but I still kind of like having a beer every once in a while. But be praying for me on that one. That'll probably be another podcast topic coming up here soon. But the bigger ones are just looking where you spent the time. And that's the one thing we can't get back, right? You can get back money. You can't get back your hair if you're like me and starting to slowly lose it. You can get back a lot of stuff, or at least have the opportunity to get in a different position. But the time is the one thing. No matter who we are, we're all losing the same amount of time every single day. And so I urge you to look at where you're spending yours. I love the fact that these iPhones now and stuff report how much time you've spent on there. It's an eye-opening reminder of, holy smokes, I've spent a lot of time on this stupid phone. Maybe I should cut that back. And I'm not saying go cold turkey. That usually doesn't work well. Like a lot of these, it's the reason these New Year's resolutions don't work as well. People just go cold turkey or go 150% onto something. It just really works. You need to do things incrementally, just like if you're trying to lose weight. You don't try to lose 30 pounds in a week. You stagger it out. You do a couple pounds here, a couple pounds there. You do it slow and steady. And so I would urge you to look at your time and find out where things are just like stealing from you, like emotionally draining you. And get rid of it. And then finally, get rid of bad people. Get rid of toxic people and relationships. That's something that I continue to work on. And I've had to say, goodbye to some friends who, quite honestly, were toxic over the years. And it doesn't mean I don't love them and I don't pray for them, and that I won't take a phone call, but I don't want to hang out with them. And I don't want to really spend, my valuable time with them because they're just toxic and negative and condescending and just not full of love. And, as much as I like to think I could change someone, in most cases, I can't. It's going to come from a higher power than me to try to change people. So I would highly urge you, if you got someone who's toxic or bringing you down or, just constantly being negative, and every time you leave that person's presence, you just kind of feel slimy or dirty or feel like, oh man, he or she got me in a kind of just a bad attitude. Get rid of them. Quickly start distancing yourself from that person. But I'd love to hear from you guys. Anything that you kind of learned? Were there any kind of mistakes or her lessons learned, whether it be this whole political year, getting caught up in that stuff, or COVID, or alcohol, or just overworking, or whatever it might be. Love to hear any and all thoughts on that. The final piece is I just want to be more forgiving and loving and a better listener. That's something that I struggle with. I like to talk. I'm quick to give my opinion on stuff, whether it be inside the business, family, etc. And so that's something I'm going to be working on a lot this year, is just listening, just taking a step back, taking a breath, and listening, and really trying to decipher what this other person is saying and how they're feeling. Just treat them like I would want to be treated if the roles reversed. So that is it. My email, joe@saltstrong.com, joe@saltstrong.com. I would love to hear from you. Any thoughts you have, any big lessons learned, I would love to hear them. Otherwise, I'll have this post at saltstrong.com/podcast, and you can leave me a message right there, right in the comments, and I would love to read it. So, guys, appreciate you. I hope this is an amazing year for you. I hope you got something out of this and can kind of look back at your year and really analyze it. I'm not talking about just looking at the bright spots, but even look at some areas where maybe you made some mistakes. What lessons can you learn? How can you fix that? What new habits can you create? What bad habits can you get rid of? Do it. It'll change your life. Peace.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul. It was passed down to me from the days of old. To find us on the water, if there was a way. It's been said my papa, he wrote the book on catching big reds and 20-pound snook. I wish I knew all the things he knew today. For he's the reason why we are this way. And he put fishing in our soul.